worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Okay, good morning and or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are all over the world. Welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio the way it should be heard. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with the Compensatory Concept. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is Radio the way it should be heard. In a few moments, I will give you the number that you can call to get in contact with the show, either by phone, which we pay for, or by email or Gmail. I will give you those that address also, but don't do it right now. We usually like to reserve a spot for Mr. Fuller's opening statements and whatever house cleaning chores that we must do. Don't forget now that we have to do a station break every 15, 30, 45, and then, of course, the end of the show. So I do not want to interrupt Mr. Fuller as he is giving out information or answering your questions, but we have to do that. So just keep that in mind. Also, I'd like to thank the many who have begun to donate to pick up sponsors. And speaking of that, let me read this so that you can contribute to the show. You can contact K&E World Network, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio 43206, making care of the Compensatory Concept. Now, we will accept a money order or a bank check. No personal checks will be accepted. We will email you your receipt, which is tax deductible, and all donations are final. Now, the purpose is to extend the compensatory concept for and an additional hour, making it a 2-hour program. Our goal is to cover 1 year of programming. People have called in and wanted to have the program go 2 hours because it just seems sometimes and most of the time we run out of time. So we are trying to extend it and also pay for it. And now people are stepping up to the plate. Now you wanted it, and here it is, your opportunity to make a donation to the compensatory concept. You make it again to K&E World Network, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio 43206, in care of the compensatory concept. Now, let me make this clear while we're on this. Please, and I emphasize the word please do not send any donations to Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Don't do that. He has nothing whatsoever to do with this part of the program. Nothing. So don't send it to him. In fact, if you did, he would send it back. Do not do that. Do not do that. We've already set that up. He's not compensated for, for this particular portion of that. Now, what you can do, and I strongly suggest that you do this, that you get his book, and it's called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Now, it is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. Now, you can get that by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And when that particular screen comes up, all the information you need is there for you to obtain your copy of the compensatory, the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. And also, in addition to that, if you would like, there is a word guide that you may purchase, and you can get that also by going to producejustice.com, and all the information is there. And as I understand it, Mr. Fuller and his people are working on a way to make sure that people all over the world, in particular Europe, and parts of Africa, can receive this book. Right now, my understanding is it's really difficult to, and in fact, I want to say you can't, but somebody will come up with a way that they can get the book. But right now, he has no established link, to do that. But they're working to do that so that the book can be distributed worldwide. So we thank Mr. Fuller for that. Okay, I think that's all the house cleaning chores that I have to do right now. Okay, now let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. He's on the line live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Fuller, good morning, and I hope you have recovered from that deep snow in the D.C. area. How are you?
I'm still learning.
You're still learning. You're learning how to deal with that snow?
Still learning that, too.
Okay, glad you're well. To start off the program on your opening comments, what is on your mind that you would like to start today's segment out with?
Well, along with a lot of people, I think, right now, my mind is kind of all over the place because that's how things seem to be going, all over the place. And so we try to stay, or rather, I try to stay focused on what are the most important things that people should be thinking about. And usually it comes in the form of problem solving. And what is the central problem, which I always say that the underlying problem of all problems on the planet is this problem of racism, something that somebody thought of before any of the people who are on the planet now were born. Somebody thought of this idea of something called racism, categorizing people according to color, and then coming up with schemes that how do you relate to people when you are a different color from people in all areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, war. How do people supposed to interact with each other if they are of different color? When I say color, I mean color of the skin. That's what they went by. That was the standard. And it never should have been thought of in the first place. No one should have ever given that a single thought, no more than they would have given a thought to, any more thought than they would to someone being, even in the family, one person 3 or 4 inches taller than the other person. They'll just say, well, Angelina is, 3 inches taller than Carol. So, I mean, it's all in the family. But someone picked out this thing called color, and they made color classifications. When you take the census, the biggest feature in the Northwestern Hemisphere in census taking, that is just going around and getting the demographics about people. I mean, where they work and how, what kind of housing they have and their job situation and what their age is and all like that. The biggest feature of census taking is what color you are. And that's the biggest feature in anything going on the planet. First order of business is, well, what color is the person? Does the person have color in his or her skin? And they say, well, maybe. Maybe nothing. I mean, go out and take a look. Go out and check. I mean, we got this lady here, and she's applying for this job, but the first thing we got to consider, it looks like her name is Keisha Jenkins. And so, now, wait a minute. According to the white code, Keisha Jenkins, what about Carolyn Westwood? Well, we better try Carolyn Westwood. Interview her. This Keisha Jenkins sounds like she might be on some kind of color list. We don't want no more of those people in here. We got the quota. That's the consideration. Unfortunately, everything on the planet is done on the basis of that, which is crazy, which is why we have an absolute insane planet. And so I just want to interject that as a start. But then for the individual person, I want to say this. I'm going to revisit these 4 wants again. Because 4 important questions every day at all times, to all persons. There are 4 things that you should think about every day if you're any kind of person on this planet. Other planets might be different. But if you're on this planet, you usually have something that you want. Your wants will motivate you to do the things that you are probably going to do, because people usually try to do the things that they want to do. So a person should be real serious about asking these 4 questions of him or herself, not the other person. Ask yourself these questions. I have to ask myself these questions. What do you want to do most? Now, everybody wants to do something all day long. You want to catch a bus. You want to make a phone call. You want to go here. You want to go there. You want to speak to this person, speak to that person. You want to eat breakfast, whatever. All day long, you want to do something. But out of all those wants, there's something in the back of your mind that keeps telling you, what do you want to do most? That's number 1. Now, number 2 question. Why do you want to do it? You should definitely want to know why you want to do what you want to do. You might want to take part in a carjacking. Okay, why do you want to do it? Well, you say, hey, I'm broke. I don't have no money, but I got a gun. So I'm going to rob somebody. Okay, why do you want to do it? To get some money. Okay, how do you plan to do it? Well, I plan to use my gun. And I'm going to the airport now and see if I can find somebody, who is unsuspecting, and put a gun behind their ear and run off with their car. And I'll kill them if I have to. Okay, big plan. Number 4, what do you expect the constructive result to be? That is the bottom line question. And underline the word constructive, because wherever you are on the planet, particularly if you're a person of color, out of all these wants, your bottom line is, what do you expect the constructive result to be of what you want? Oh, I want to get married. You want to get married to who? You want to get married to Paul. You want to get married to Willie Mae. You want to get married to Keisha, whatever. Yeah. What do you expect the constructive result to be?
Mm-hmm.
What is this going to look like 10 years from now? So I just want to revisit those 4 wants.
Okay.
So everybody should think about it all day long, and always think about, what if they get what they want, what is that result going to be? Because there's an old saying, getting what you want isn't nearly so much important as wanting what you get. Be careful what you wish for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the questions again are, what do you want to do the most? Why do you want to do it? How do you plan on doing it? And what do you expect the constructive, underline, result to be? Okay, get ready to call in, 1-877-932, 1-877-932. 9766 is the number that you can get in contact with the show. But before we do that, Talktainment Radio is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's one that I'd like to share with you. It's on today, as a matter of fact. It's called Fight Back with Bob Fortakis. The legendary citizen advocate and political agitator Bob Fortakis revives his public affairs talk radio program, Fight Back. The confusion of disputed election results, unequal cuts to public school funding, hate groups, and speech are only some of the issues Bob Fortakis takes to task. And you can hear Fight Back with Bob Fortakis on Wednesdays here on TalkTameAtRadio.com. And I know that they probably have discussed what's been going on in Flint, Michigan. Wow. But yeah, Fight Back on Wednesdays here exclusively on TalkTameAtRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. You're listening to The Compensatory Concept on TalkTameAtRadio.com. I am Mr. Bobby, the co-host, and we have on the line from Washington, D.C., Neely Fuller, Jr., and you can call in by calling 1-877-932-9766. The phone lines are open, and you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and I will try to read your messages. Message for you, Mr. Fuller, from, let's see if I can pronounce it right, Sipaway. He wrote this. He says on page 94 of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, Mr. Fuller writes, quote, "Do not confuse comfort with justice," end of quote. And then he uses the example of a black slave in the warm kitchen of a white master on a cold, rainy day. Could you please discuss, quote, confusing comfort with justice, Mr. Fuller?
Well, you can be comfortable in a prison, which is what the white supremacists have made the world for people of color a prison. They have made the entire planet a prison that they run. And what happens in a prison? You assign people their bunks, where they eat, where they're going to get their food, where they can be at any given time. You just can't be any place. You got to get, if you have color in your skin, you got to get permission from those white people, not all white people, I'm saying, but those white people who believe in white supremacy, they're the ones who are running things. So they tell a person, black, brown, red, yellow, beige, tan, anybody who has color in his or her skin, they say where you can be on this planet. They say, you can't come here. You can't go there. You better not cross that river. You didn't get my permission. Boy, girl, gal, you didn't get my permission. Get my permission before you cross that river, before you cross that ocean, before you come in my ocean, or before you violate my airspace. You better not borrow a plane or nothing like that and fly in my airspace without my permission. I tell you people of color where you can go. If you want to trade with somebody, even one of your cousins, on a distant island somewhere, you better get my permission before you take off, because I will stop you on the high seas. You're on my ocean. This is my ocean. I don't care where the ocean is. It's mine. You get my permission. See, so you can now, the white supremacists, just like they do with, I make this comparison because, lots of people like their dogs, but their dog is still a dog. You might put your dog in a fur coat and walk it out into the winter snow, and that dog is wearing an expensive fur coat made for dogs. Some people may do that. Why? Because they really favor their dogs. I won't say like, but they have, they just say, I want a dog, and it's my dog, so I'm going to treat my dog with great comfort. It's the same way with some white supremacists. They'll say, I'm going to take my Negro and put him in the finest clothes you ever want to see. I'm going to dress him up, and I'm going to, in fact, I'm going to have a show of several of my favorite black people. And I'm going to have them go around in a circle, and show off all their diamonds and their tattoos and their hairdos and all of this. I'm going to groom them well, just like I do the rest of my animals, my dogs, my horses, my other stable of other things, in order to do what? Embellish me. Say, hey, I am so wealthy that I can make my Negroes think that they are kings. put them on a pedestal and have them prance around and show off particularly to other Negroes about all the wonderful things that they got from me. That's what it means.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Brother Sipaway. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Hi, my name is Gregory. I'm calling from Florida. I like to say I'm a big fan of Neely Fuller. I think he breaks down things to a way that we all can understand. And my question is a two-part question. It is regarding, like, the law of karma. Yeah, I'd like to ask Mr. Fuller if he believes in the law of karma. And the second part of that question is, how is it that white supremacists have been exempt from this for it seems like centuries? How come they don't reap all the repercussions of things? Like it says, thou shalt not kill and steal. And our country was built upon that same principle.
Mr. Fuller, the law of karma?
Oh, I have heard people talk about karma and all like that. I don't really understand exactly what that means, because it means different things to different people. So I have to ask that question anytime somebody uses it, because that is a part of what the word guide that I put out talks about. When anybody uses any word like karma, and that's the word being mentioned now, the person who is using the word should describe what it means to them, because it means different things to different people. So I would start with that word.
Mm-hmm.
What is the definition of it? What is it supposed to mean? Now, when I hear the word, I think it has something to do with thought, deep thought, or something, or that other, there are things that influence things. It could mean that. All the different factors that go on around a person. I mean, and it sets up a sort of a scenario for things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so you tap into these things that are going to happen before they happen. I kind of think, some people might call it being able to predict. Well, logic is all about that. Logic is about being able to predict. You can predict based on your experiences that when you turn the key in your ignition, that if everything is set in place, spark plugs, all your wiring is in place, your battery is hooked up, etc., then your car will start. Now, you can call that karma, because it's a logical progression, and you can predict that it's going to happen. And when it doesn't happen, instantly.
Mm-hmm.
It's hood time. You have to raise that hood and start checking things under there, because that's what you see other people do when that happens.
Yes, sir.
So,
So the second part of his question, you're not able to answer, because you need to know what the first part is, which is what is karma. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I guess karma, everyone has their own definition, like Mr. Fuller said, but I guess in general, it means like cause and effect. If you do things to people, it'll come back to you. And it seems like they're exempt from that.
Mr. Fuller, he said it seems like they are exempt from that?
Oh, the white supremacists?
Yes.
No, not necessarily. It depends on what other people want to do. See, the white supremacists are people. So whatever people do that shouldn't be done, people can correct. But they have to have the will and the ability to correct it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where the problem is. You can have the will and might not have the ability.
All right.
To correct something that needs correcting. Oh. Or you can have the ability, but you don't have the will.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a lot of white people who are not white supremacists or don't fancy themselves as being white supremacists who could put a stop to this thing overnight. Overnight. They could just practically snap their finger and say, enough of this foolishness about what color somebody is. That's out. Let's forget it. Let's set up a system where that just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen anywhere at any time. Let's stop all this foolishness. I mean, it's dragged on too long. Now, the white people who have the will to do that haven't shown themselves. They have the ability. It's a white world. They have the ability. They have the ability to do all kinds of things. Go to the bottom of the sea, go into outer space and all like that. They are able to do things that they want to do. But it seems to be a lack of will to solve what we call loosely the race problem. That's all it is. The black people want it to be done away with for the most part because they're the ones suffering from it. But we don't have the ability. Now, why is it we don't have the ability? Because we haven't made it a priority, for one thing. Black people's priority is what? And I'm going to say this again, over and over again. If we stop and think about it and just watch our behavior, and it's really not our fault. We've been trained that way. Black people just pay attention to each other. We concentrate on impressing each other.
Yes, sir.
And that's as far as we go. If we can impress, if black people anywhere on this planet, truth be told, can just do anything, throw a rock through a window, I mean, to get the attention of other black people. And then people either are horrified, or they laugh, or they have some kind of reaction. That's as much as we want. That's really what we look forward to if we tell the truth. We've been programmed that way. And that is a very, very shallow goal for people who inhabit this planet. This planet has all kinds of things that can provide all kinds of comfort and whatnot and problem solving for people. Black people are not in a problem solving mode, truth be told. We're not problem solvers. We don't wake up in the morning thinking about solving major problems all over the world, that is our priority. We just think of, can we get enough of a little bit of this or a little bit of that, or say something, or just walk down the street and knock somebody's hat off so that we can get the attention of other black people. Truth be told.
Truth be told.
That's even what gangs are about.
All righty. Thank you, Florida, for your call. Mr. Fuller, first start talking about color classification. Ask 4 questions. What do you want to do the most? Why do you want to do it? How do you plan on doing it? And what do you expect the constructive result will be? That's how he started off. But we're going to go to line number 2. Line number 2, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning.
This is Calvin. I'm calling from Georgia. It was funny to hear Mr. Fuller talking about what he was just talking about, because when I first started listening to him, when he was saying that we are all children under the system, I finally understand it now, because they're building a new high school down here where I live, and to see those adult black males down there begging for a contract and they not give them one is something truly, it's truly funny to see that. I understand now that we are children up under the system. My question is, I don't have my book with me, but I think it's page 61. Mr. Fuller, you talked about avoid having offspring until you can clearly explain to them what white supremacy is. And for those of us that already have offspring, what's the best way to handle? I got a 12-year-old son, and I was helping him recently with a project on racism. They had him doing they was doing Michael Jackson's song "Black or White," and I was helping him with his project, and I want to refer to the code book so bad, but I know if I tell him racism is white supremacy, he cannot say that at school and not be punished. So I'm still teaching him to be a victim. So what's the best way, Mr. Fuller, to explain to a child about racism?
People always ask me, what do you tell young people? And I always answer in a codified manner. You tell young people the same thing that you tell old people. You tell them the truth. But you always tell them in such a way that they understand what you're saying. And that's young people or old people. It doesn't make any difference. The truth is the truth. Because if you're not telling the truth, I mean, it's all downhill anyway. Because, and particularly if you tell something that's not true to young people, because later on they find out that you're telling lies. And, wow, I mean, that does a whole lot of damage when you have young people believe something that's not true, and later on they find out on their own that it's not true.
Wow.
And you told it. No. So you always tell the truth, but always start, basically, when they start asking questions, they're ready for the answer. Don't indoctrinate people. Educate people. And the difference between indoctrination and education is people who are educated usually get educated when they're seeking answers to questions. So you'll know when they start asking questions. That's basically it. Wait for them to ask you questions about things, and then you come up with the truthful answers.
Okay. Thank you, caller. TalkTimeAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on WCRS-FM 98.3 Wednesdays and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download the TalkTimeAtRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there.
Offering 40-plus talk radio-style programs, professionally produced, optimized for online distribution, featuring Columbus, Ohio on-air personalities. TalkTimeAtRadio.com offers listeners diverse programming options covering topics such as arts and culture, love, life and relationships, technology, religion, paranormal activities, local and national politics, women's issues, alongside health and wellness. Listeners can access their favorite TalkTimeAtRadio.com programs free of cost.
Believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard. So you don't need to sell all your belongings and live in a commune.
These dungarees belong to all of us now, Tom.
You don't need to get a second job as a stuntman.
We need a new stuntman!
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
It's 6:42 p.m. Time for Steve Plato and his son Dylan to do the dishes. They talk about everything from the yuckiness of girls to the awesomeness of his soccer team. Sometimes they don't talk at all. Then, hey! The dreaded splash fight. It's Dad o'clock, and it's the best time of the day. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. You know, I help people solve difficult problems every day, but one problem has me stumped: childhood hunger. Nearly 16 million children in America struggle with it. Luckily, the Feeding America network of local food banks collects surplus food, giving hope to hungry children and their families. But they need your help. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? Amid the chaos? Or is the best time perhaps today? Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
My suit can still make an impression.
And my lamp can bring others a bright future.
Because when I donate my stuff to Goodwill, it helps fund job placement and training for people right in my community.
Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Go ahead. Make my day.
You got the power.
TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. You can get in contact with the show. If you can get in, our lines are jammed. It's 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Quickly, donations to the show can be with K&E World Network, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio 43206, in care of the compensatory concept. We will accept money orders and bank checks, but no personal checks, and we will email you your receipt, and all donations are final. The purpose is to extend the compensatory concept for and an additional hour, making it a 2-hour program. Our goal is to cover 1 year of programming. Quickly, Mr. Fuller, how how can people get in contact with the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept book?
Go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And I adopted that particular .com because that's what you're supposed to be producing. Someone called in a while ago and asked about the young people and all like that. Let's always have them focus on that one product that everybody should be trying to produce, and that is justice, which means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. You got to have definitions for words. That's another thing, so that you can always measure what we're saying. I found out years ago, in 1994, there was no legal definition for the word justice. And I said, we're walking around here talking about getting justice, and we don't even have a definition? How are you going to measure it? How are you going to know that you got it when you got it? I mean, when you say definition for a boat, you got an idea of what a boat looks like. You know that a boat is not the same as a car. I mean, unless it's a hybrid type thing or something like that. You got to have definitions for words.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell people, why do you want to get rid of racism? So you can have justice, because you cannot have justice and racism on the same planet at the same time. You cannot have white supremacy and justice on the same planet at the same time. That's impossible.
Okay.
That's a contradiction. So you want to produce a product called justice, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Go to producejustice.com, and what will come up on the screen is a brief description of the textbook for victims of white supremacy. You can order from there.
Okay. Before we go to the phone lines, John Baptiste wrote this. Mr. Fuller, I recently observed a TV panel of Donald Trump supporters addressing their issues to the host. A woman who is classified as white said that she is angry that she cannot express what she really feels about social issues without being branded a racist. Do you feel that she's being truthful? And with that statement, Mr. Fuller, what is stopping anyone who is classified as white to speak their mind?
Oh, if you're in a white supremacist system, anybody who's white can certainly speak his or her mind with the approval of their peers. Because if you're white, your peer is going to be somebody else who is white. And so therefore, if they approve of what you say, you can pretty well go. I mean, you don't have to get black people's approval for anything if you're white. I mean, any place on the planet I ever heard about, because that's what white supremacy means. Now, it doesn't mean that all white people are racist, but it means that if I was a white person and I really wanted to get approval of something that I wanted to do or say, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I wouldn't talk to black people. I mean, why would I talk to black people? They are victims of white supremacy. Mm-hmm. They're subject to it. I would go and find other white people who would agree with my point of view. Now, some of them may agree, some of them may not agree, but I'm going to have to get an agreement with some white people, because that's the same thing that black people have to do. Mm-hmm. Black people can't do anything on this planet without the approval of the white supremacists. You've got to get that approval, otherwise you're going to hear from them. I mean, and when you hear from them in a vicious type way, you feel it. Mm-hmm. And you feel it every day.
All righty. Let's go to line number 3. You're now with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bob. I want to talk about field of entertainment. So I want to draw positive images of black people. How I plan to do it, I do it as I listen to the show every week, so I currently draw. Why I want to do it is I want to make money with selling my drawings, and I want to promote positive images of black people. And the constructive result is, making money and having positive images of black folks. And I'm rereading the code, I'm reading the word guide, and Francis Cress Welson's ISIS papers. So, I just wanted to express my respect for Mr. Fuller, and hear his thoughts on that, if he had any thoughts.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Fuller, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, that is something that I have found that's kind of difficult to do, which doesn't mean that it can't be done. But in order to have images and be truthful, you have to have images that are truthful. Because, otherwise a false image is not going to be very impressive. So the best way to go about it is just show any image of black people who are trying in some way to do something that is of constructive value, at least. And you'll have to either directly or indirectly, whether you're making a movie or whether you're drawing a picture or something like that, you're first of all going to have to tell the truth. And the truth is pretty dismal. If you put up a photograph of black people on this planet of any kind and you're going to be truthful, that photograph is not going to reflect anything that's going to make a lot of people happy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right? If you're going to be truthful, because we are in a prisoner-type situation. You're taking pictures of prisoners of war. I mean, what can you say? I mean, you say, well, hey, if I'm in an orange jumpsuit or I'm a prisoner of war, the race war, is that a positive image? No, it isn't, except how you present it. If it's a person who is a prisoner of war, who is trying to do something that reflects that he is trying to eliminate that prison and make it into a paradise, then that's a tricky situation to do, but it probably can be done.
Okay. All righty. You are now listening to The Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on TalkTameItRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can download the TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host of The Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on TalkTameItRadio.com. And we have Mr. Neely Fuller on the line from Washington, D.C. Hopefully they have dug out from that tremendous snowstorm. But if you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Let's go to line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I always enjoy the show. Before there was something called white supremacists, there were conquerors. Conquerors didn't care what color or shade you were. They come, they see, they conquer, they exterminate. The only difference today is the excuse and game they call America before our extermination goes full blown. This is what they are setting up here. They are creating an atmosphere in this country for us to be exterminated. They have death squads. They all over this country killing black people. Now, sure, white supremacy run the world. We understand that, but that doesn't mean that you might not be able to take your children or grandchildren somewhere if you had the money or the wherewithal. That does not mean you won't be able to take them somewhere and live your life out. There have been refugees forever. You got them coming here right now from different countries, running for their life. That's the way the world has been set up. You can't change that. But if you're able to get out of here, you better think seriously about it, because they are going to exterminate people here who call themselves black. The writing is on the wall.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much, my brother. Okay. Mr. Fuller, you care to comment?
No, he didn't ask me a question.
Okay.
He made a series of statements.
Okay.
So I always say, a part of the code itself is that everybody has what you call victims guaranteed qualification. So the gentleman who is calling, he's well qualified to say the things that he's saying, whether anybody agrees with it or not. Now, I have my views on it, but I'm not going to express them because I'll let his views stand on their own.
Okay.
That's what everybody should do. I call it standing by your work.
Oh.
So he's made a series of statements. Those are his views, and everybody listening should consider his views. Why? Because no one has solved the race problem. That hasn't been done by anybody. And so, therefore, you never know whose views will have the solution. So I present mine, and the call-ins, if they just make statements and they're not asking questions, if they present their views, listen to their views. You never know when someone will come up and say, hey, it's not Neely Fuller. It's not even any of these other people. I just heard a lady call in the other day, and boy, she has the answer. And that's what we should go with. And you know what? It just might turn out to be the answer. You never know.
Just might turn out. Okay, let's go to line number 3. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Did you say 2 or 3?
3. You're on.
Okay, yes, sir. Say, Mr. Fuller, I have a question. When it comes down to black relationships, especially on the job, it seems like black people think that it's more beneficial to actually help the oppressor mistreat other black people. You know, it's the men and the women. I mean, if they know that there's a black on that job that the whites don't like, just to score brownie points or get ahead, they'll pretend like they don't like that black person. And it's very devastating when it's the black women going against the black men, helping the white men go against black men. I mean, it's, in some situations you find out that and all the person, they may even be dating and all he's trying to do is use her. So how do our people, what is your views on black relationships as far as getting along with each other on the job? And like I just said, it seemed to me like blacks find it more beneficial or think it's more beneficial to actually help white people oppress or hurt other blacks. I'll listen off the air. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fuller?
That's not an illusion. Expect that. On every job you go on, expect that. That's what we mean by white supremacy. I mean, in the movie Gone with the Wind, there's a scene that you can probably play. I mean, I've seen it over and over again. One black person says, quitting time, and the other black person says, who says it's quitting time? I'm the foreman. I was the one who says quitting time. Quitting time, in other words, this has always been. That's why that scene is depicted. That's the way it works. And you should expect that. That's the plantation system. The whole world is a plantation. See, I mean, don't be puzzled by that. That goes with the territory. You go on a job, it's going to be a black person who's been assigned to give you all kinds of trouble. Okay? Expect that. And be polite to that person and all like that. Listen to what the person says. Try to do what the person tells you to do. But then when you get a chance, to talk to the foreman, the real foreman, the boss, which is white, the person who is behind it all, you always want to talk to the Don. We learned that, by studying the mafiosa and whatnot. You're not getting nowhere, dealing with hired guns. But talk to the Don, all right? At some point, you will ask for an audience with the Don. And then you sit down and you say, now, we all understand what's going on, but I'm being mistreated, and sir, is there any way that you can stop the mistreatment? And first thing that the white supremacist is going to do is say, well, you want me to get rid of that black person down there that's telling you what to do? See, that's the trick. See what I mean? He's going, and he will get rid of him. He'll get rid of him and then replace him with another one. Might even replace him with you and have you do the same thing. See, it's an old trick. See, so you always have to deal, just like the mafiosa understands this, what they call organized crime.
Yes.
And the Godfather and all that. At some point, you have to deal with the Don.
Talk to the Don.
Yes. Otherwise, you're not getting nowhere.
And that's absolutely.
You can complain about all those other hired guns all you want to. They're going to keep coming. You're never going to do anything with that. Be polite to them. Try not to step on any toes. Try to be good with them. Even when they're cursing you out and all like that, let them. And all like that, because they're not running nothing no way. Always talk to the Don. Then the Don comes down and he says, well, boys and girls, This is what we're going to do from now on. That's after you talk to the Don. And then everybody falls in line. But it's because you talk to the Don. If you can't talk to the Don, nothing's going to happen anyway.
So the Don is the man, huh?
The Don is always the white supremacist.
Okay. Let's go to line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Morning, enjoying your show as usual. And I'm going to make a short comment and then a question about the young man that just called in about extermination. And Dr. Neely Fuller is right. You do have to look up the word. What does it mean, exterminating? And my comment, and I have one little short question. He talks about we will be exterminated. Well, in my opinion, we already are being exterminated. We just have to look around us. We wear the guys wear their pants down, or we're being exterminated through the system of white supremacy. So I'd like for Dr. Neely to shortly give a definition of extermination.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Well,
thank you, and you all keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Extermination means you kill everybody. That's what extermination means. You don't leave anybody. This is not true of the white supremacists. The white supremacists have a ongoing strategy. One of their strategies is called racial population tailoring. What they do, they tailor the populations like they did in Rwanda in 1994. They just run a little experiments where they try to work with people's minds and get people to kill each other. That's one of the main ways that they handle black people. Like in Chicago, I mean, that just see how you can run that tally up. And black people read the papers and they run out in the street and try to help them run the tally up. All right? Hey, we got 450 deaths last year. Let's try for 680 this year. Say, boy, that's pretty good. It's a game. It's all fun and games. See, so and the white supremacists sometimes will start a rumor, like is allegedly what happened in Rwanda in 1994, and go and tell one group that the other group is coming after them, and then run down the road and tell the other group that the other group is coming after them, and then stand back and watch the fireworks. I mean, and they do this all over the world. They got all kinds of little tricks that they do to set this off. And see, so that was about 800,000 people, reportedly, in just a matter of a few weeks.
Yes.
2 or 3 weeks.
Yes.
All right? But then, let's talk about this word extermination. Then, at some point, the white supremacists will say, okay, that's enough, boys and girls. You got the population down to just about what I wanted. Because it was getting to be too many of you dark-skinned people, and so I wanted to kill off a few of them. That way that I can handle my business better, because I needed maybe just a few 100,000, to disappear, so that they won't be in my way when I start my oil project or whatnot. And this is how they do it all over the world, and they'll keep doing this as long as you have white supremacy.
Okay.
There's no defense against it.
No defense.
Right.
Okay, we started out today's program Mr. Fuller speaking on color classification, and you need to ask these 4 questions to yourself. What do you want to do the most? Or what do you want to do the most? Why do you want to do it? How do you plan on doing it? And what do you expect the constructive result will be? Which brings me to this question that was discussed in some of my meetings this week. Mr. Fuller, one of the questions was asked, what does the meaning of the young people wearing their pants down on half of their behind, what does that mean?
You have to ask, that's an excellent question. I would ask if I can, if I could get a conversation with the person, I would just simply ask the person. Like if a person gets a tattoo and they're showing it to me, I would say, okay, what am I supposed to do now that I've looked at your tattoo? And if a person drops their pants and shows me that, hey, look at me dropping my pants. Okay, well, why are you dropping your pants, and why do you want me to see you drop your pants? And wait for the answer. Don't try to help the person with the answer. That's a part of the code. When you ask a question, don't help the person with the answer. Let the person answer according to his or her own intent.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person is going around, I mean, if that's what they're doing, they may not be showing it to me. They may be showing it to somebody across the street or something like that. They'll say, "Hey, man, this ain't for you. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for that dude across the street, or that group across the street, or that lady across the street walking a dog. That's what I'm dropping my pants for." "Oh, okay, sorry, sir. Oh, I thought you were directing, trying to get my attention with your pants dropped. Okay, I'm exempt from that. Okay, so I'll just continue on my way. I'll try not to look because I'm violating your space if I'm looking, right? Yeah, you ain't supposed to be looking at my pants dropped. I'm dropping my pants for them 3 people standing over there on that corner on the other side." Just let him explain himself. He knows why he's doing it. Let him explain why he's doing it if he wants to. But he might tell you, none of your business. So that's his explanation. End of story.
Well, what does that have to do with this then? Every problem can be solved by asking questions.
Oh, that problem is solved. Because now what you have done by raising that question, if you didn't get shot, all right, go see, the first thing he's going to do most likely is get mad by you asking the question.
Why would he get mad?
Oh, because that's why he dropped his pants in the first place, most likely, to get you to say something so he can start a fight. All right, so you don't rise to that bait. You just let him. He can drop his pants all the way down to so that they're down around his shoes. I mean, and let him try to walk with his pants around his shoes. That's his business. I mean, it's the white world anyway.
Okay.
So if the white supremacists, don't say anything about it, don't you say nothing.
All right. And another question that was asked in our meetings is, they asked me to ask you, what does Mr. Fuller have to say about the conditions in Flint, Michigan, water-wise?
Oh, that's typical. White supremacists, they are the suspects. Yes. Poisoning water? Yes. They're doing it all over the world as we speak, not just in Flint. They're poisoning black people. They're poisoning them everywhere. Everywhere you find people of color, you better believe there's plenty of poison in the air, in the water, everything else. I mean, that's the way they tailor populations. Lead, paint, all of that. Put you on top of radon. They got something called radon up under the ground and whatnot.
Yeah, I heard of that.
I mean, every now and then they'll, say that we're going to build some housing out here for the people who are underprivileged, meaning dark-skinned people. So they build those houses, and they're nice houses. They're all sitting right on top of radon. All right? So that the children come up with all kind of deformities and all like that. And they sit back and laugh. That's the kind of people they are.
That's the kind of people. Would that lend itself quickly to what that brother said about exterminating?
No, well, they're not trying to exterminate us. They're just trying to... See, extermination means you kill everybody. They're not trying to do that.
Okay.
They want to just practice white supremacy.
White supremacy.
Right, that's all.
Okay. TalkTameItRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, and radio the way it should be heard. We will see you next week with more of your questions and more of your calls. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept